every space that we are occupying has been constructed by someone. And so then sometimes we do an exercise where we actually try and look at websites and see, who are the, leaders in parks and recreation in Canada, for example. And if you look historically, it has been mostly white, mostly men, and even where women have come into those spaces, they have often made space for other white, able-bodied, cis, hetero women. And so the idea that, it's just a park or it's just a gym is, it's really naive, and we should always, I think, be thinking about the politics, even in terms of the funding, like how did this building come here? And when you trace it back, it's often, you can trace it back to a very few, a narrow group of people who hold a lot of the power. Certainly within, for example, just take parks and recreation and leisure spaces. I mean, like, we are obviously on Indigenous land, and Indigenous people were moved out so that those parks could be used for white leisure and upper class leisure. And so the very occupation of outdoor space is connected to that quest for whiteness, that quest for health, that quest for a fit body. And so I don't think that those concepts are separate at all. And that desire for wellness, especially when it is framed as a neoliberal, like something that you can purchase at a gym, that is really restrictive. Some of my research, particularly with racialized communities in Toronto, focuses on how exclusionary even outdoor spaces can feel, that Black people and Indigenous people don't feel welcome in outdoor spaces or gym spaces or yoga spaces, even those spaces that are sometimes, for example, designed for all bodies. They might think they're being accessible and welcoming, but it's really all white bodies of all sizes, as opposed to really thinking about how they could improve their accessibility and their outreach to particular communities. So there is a direct link, I think, to that desire for wellness, health, fitness, aspirations to upper middle classness and whiteness, and the ways that the marginalized communities and racialized communities are consistently excluded from that narrative. And so then thinking about more traditional ways of moving, ways of being. Some of my research has also been with Caribbean dance classes and Brazilian capoeira, and in those spaces that are led by racialized folks, I found that they are doing more than just teaching the movements. And so they're teaching about different philosophies, different ways of being, other mothering philosophies in terms of, caring for each other, seeing students not necessarily as clients, but as extended family, and relating to one another in, I think, a more holistic and healthy way. And that sense of inclusion allows for a sense of freedom of movement. I think once you feel safe in a space, you're not necessarily following the teacher and trying to do exactly as they do, but feeling that safety to bring your own self-expression. Even in more traditional spaces like a basketball program or a gymnastics program, I'm doing some research with those programs that are run specifically for Black girls. And in those spaces, I have found, even though they're learning a traditional Western sport, the framework that it's put in that allows girls to just be and not to control and keep clean and all of those kinds of narratives, it's really, really freeing. Your way of thinking and being, the knowledge systems that you use, the things that you consider to be right and good, all of these ideas come from a particular legacy, and so we need to consistently be troubling that. I work with some critical disability justice scholars, and the simple and straightforward things that they bring to me, it's a consistent reminder of my own ableism. And I think particularly within kinesiology, we are indoctrinated into this idea of healthy, fit, good exercise prescription, like this is the right way, this is the wrong way. And and the many ways of being are excluded, are limited. And so from a disability justice perspective, that, just making space for everyone, recognizing that the pandemic is not over, that some people are never going to be vaccinated, that we really have to shift how we think about access. Just opening the door is not making a place accessible. So I've just completed a project with Ontario University Athletics. So we looked at the 20 universities across Ontario. We're about to extend the project across Canada. But we looked at student athletes, coaches, and sport administrators and their experiences of racism and anti-racist resistance. And it was really fascinating to me to hear the real life stories. We know anecdotes, and we didn't have a comprehensive way before now to really look at student athletes and like what's happening on university campuses. And what we found is that there's racism at every university across every level, from microaggressions and jokes that aren't funny to really systemic problems where administrators and coaches can't get promoted and moved into head coaching and managerial positions. And so there's exclusions and discrimination in many different forms. But what we also found is that there are everyday practices of resistance. And to me, the idea of sport for peace, if we think of peace in the most broad sense, in terms of bringing a calmness and a wellness and an interconnection among different people, we can do that within a sporting realm. And I think there's something about the excitement of university athletics. Those who are really invested, they feel visceral excitement with every win, with every competition, and that idea of competing and traveling to other schools, occupying those different spaces, and learning from each other. I think there's real potential there. It's really unfortunate on the one hand that student athletes have to go through some of those harms, but what it has done also is create leaders. I had one student who said, the response after George Floyd's death, the response from the athletic department was so inadequate that they made me start this group. They made me be a leader. They made me create an Instagram account. And so just the way that he framed it, they created me as this advocate, leader, organizer, activist. And so without sport and without that initial negative experience with the athletic department leadership, he wouldn't have created so many great things, connections across the entire province now. He's a provincial leader in anti-racism because of the ways that he has been able to mobilize his fellow student athletes. So I think that's a perfect example of how he's bringing peace to more folks because he's a leader in his sport. And without that, he wouldn't have been able to make change.